So, welcome to Receptive Radio. Today we're interviewing Kirsten Liegmann, leader of the Illian Leadership Academy, and I'm so grateful to have her. She's my friend and I just love everything that she does. And we're going to have a conversation today about her story around managing challenging life events and how to do that. And I'm really curious and interested to get to know more because who has not had a challenging event? I think everyone can put their hand up with that one. So, Kirsten, tell us a little bit about yourself, about the Leadership Academy, too, the Illian Leadership Academy, before we start.
Yeah. Well, thank you first of all, Jennifer, for having me. This is wonderful. I know that your tribe is really aligned with the work I do, and this is really exciting. So thank you for having me. Yeah, Illian Leadership Academy. Wow, it's been a long time coming. And it really has flown out of this understanding that there are a group of humans on earth right now, self-chosen, doesn't mean they're any like better or than anybody else, but it's like the new humanity that is here to build a more beautiful world that we all know is possible, and we're seeing the craziness out there. And this group of humans have come here to say, okay, how can we build a more beautiful world, and what does that mean? And so there are different aspects to that. We have to get our foundations back down. We have to get our vision and our clarity down. And I know you do a lot of purpose work. Having that clarity is just so essential. And that what I know is the game changer, which is we need to get out of our brains and into the center core of ourselves, where intuition is, where knowingness is, where magic is, where the information comes without having to fret and should I not, how do I make decisions, all of that, right?
Yeah,
We
I
know
know.
about that, right?
Yeah,
But
yes.
that's the game changer here. All the other leadership stuff is absolutely essential that we up level on all levels, but that center area, that liminal space, is so important. And so we're going to build this leadership academy out to address all aspects of this. It's like we're building a bridge to this better world, this more beautiful world. We need the guardrails of the foundational elements, like, are you managing your time well, right? How do you have structure in your life so that you can flow? Binary reality, right? And then do you have the vision and the clarity? And when you have those two guardrails, then we get to walk the bridge in magic, in flow, and intuition as we build it. And most important, we have to represent that world that we want to build and become that person. We have to embody it with the frequency of that. And that's the work I love probably the most of all.
Well, it is magical. It is magical to step out onto that bridge and start building even as you're building it. Like the bridge, I just have this vision of about a bridge, and every plank of the bridge gets built as you step onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be finished.
No.
And you don't have to wait.
Nope.
You can start on the very first plank at any time. So, Kirsten, tell me about the struggles that the leaders who are, part of this leadership academy, like people like me. I'm a bridge builder and a conscious evolutionary, awakener. And what are our struggles? What are we struggling with most right now?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I have found, what I'll do is I'll lay out several of them, and then we can focus in on one specifically that I'm really interested in because I've experienced it. But when you take the foundational area, let's start there, is I find that a lot of this kind of leader struggles with structure, with the structural pieces of, are you mastering your own time, right? Do you end up at the end of a week feeling totally satisfied, totally fulfilled, knowing you got done what you said you were going to get done? Or do you feel like, oh no, now I got distracted by all these things that came at me again? I was in flow, right? There's a tendency to go towards the flow and the emergence and all that. And it's like a vane in the wind, right? And I find that this type of leader needs to bring back in the structural side of things, become a master of your time so that you have time to sit and be quiet, that you do move projects forward, that you don't get distracted by all the different things. One of my clients that I worked with, he was saying, I have so many opportunities coming my way, right? This space of building a better world, a more beautiful world, is so potent. I mean, you talk about, in the areas of governance and decision making, new types of investment ways of investing, the whole leadership side, the operations. I mean, there is so many different things where we're looking at how can we do it differently. Right? New monetary systems, Web3 stuff. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's the candy store. And when you're in that world, there's so many things coming at you. And,
Yeah.
I want to be involved in that and that and that. And then nothing gets done. So it's about the structural piece, right? That's one thing that I see. But what I would love to, and then what we talked about, in that liminal space, the fretting, the not being able to make decisions quickly and effectively because the brain keeps going into should not, should I not? And I have a, wonderful story from way back when I realized how important it is to stop the brain so that we can make better decisions more quickly, more effectively, and not go into fretting. So those are two in those two. But the one that really I'm so fascinated by right now is, in this chaotic world we're in right now, in a changing world. I mean, we're live in extraordinary times right now when there is so much chaos and so many life events and challenges are coming. How do we manage those? How do we deal with those without getting thrown off of our path? Right? Something happens. Let's say, somebody in a loved one died, a health issue, the birth of a child, new job started, a lost job, starting a new business. I mean, all of these are life events that can really take you off your game, or just somebody is angry at you, even something quote unquote smaller than that. They feel big inside of us, emotional roller coasters. And so really, like, how do we stay the course such that our life purpose is so strong, so solid, our passion is so on fire, and we are here. We embody a leader who's not derailed, who's unwavering.
Right. And you're making some important points there about how things like a life event, the major ones, but then there's those daily life events too that can throw you off. And for conscious entrepreneurs, visionaries, people like myself, we're open and receptive. So we're open to opportunities. We're open to these ideas that are coming from inside of us and from, the divine matrix as well. Plus, other people who are connected to us. And it's like, oh, it is a candy store. So you made some important points there. Can you tell us a bit about your story and about the challenging life events you have gone through recently?
Yeah. So the last little over 3 years have been very, very fascinating for me. I had 3 very major life events happen. Number one is Rennie, my husband, and partner in everything we were doing. We were co-teaching, we were envisioning, creating a showcase for a new way of living, a piece of land where we could demonstrate how humanity can live on Earth in harmony with the Earth, with each other, with themselves. He passed away somewhat unexpectedly in early 2021, right?
Really? I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was
I know.
a life event. Let's put it that way,
Yeah.
right? And then later that year, I get a call from my mother who lived in California, and she said, "I need help. Can I come live with you?" Right? So we moved her here to Colorado, and she's been living with me. Second major life event, big one, right?
Mhm.
And then the third one that just happened earlier this year is that I had a cancer diagnosis.
Mhm.
And the symptoms, unbeknownst to me, started in 2023. And then at the beginning of the year, I had a cancer diagnosis, which led to a full hysterectomy in February of this year. So, really, those three events were massive, each in their own right. And what it did in each case, how we create these learning experiences for ourselves to in some way go, are you actually embodying what you teach? Can you stay in your own how you believe you should be representing, what does it mean to be a leader in this moment, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, when Rennie died, I was faced with that question: can I walk my talk? And so the talk was we taught these 13 life principles, which, in my experience, are the stepping stones for waking up, right? As a human being, waking up. How do we do that? And each life principle is a frequency in and of itself, a state of being, and then they get woven together into this, what we call the authentic self. That 13th life principle is the frequency of the authentic self, that future self of the world that we want to build. And so, principle number one, better than you could ever imagine, right? And the foundation of that is perception is our only power tool. Are you able to hold a perception that is life-giving, not life contracting, right?
Mhm.
And better than you could ever imagine is the default perception of that. And, as when Rennie was passing and when he was gone, it was like, can I hold that even this is better than you could ever imagine? Even this. Can I hold that I have a cancer diagnosis? Even this is better than you could ever imagine. So that was number one. And then the second, one of the other key principles is around check egos and understanding the mechanisms that pull our strings emotionally, right? We can go so fast into the emotional roller coaster. And I don't know if you want me to go into a little bit more detail on that, but
Well, stay with your story about how that, the ego check it was? Is that what
yeah,
the name
check
is?
egos, check
Check
egos. Yeah.
egos. How did you work that one with these life events
Yeah.
for yourself?
Let me give a little bit of
Yeah.
background so that
Yeah.
this I can make this more understandable. So there's in what I've been taught and my own experience of it now is that there is no such thing as one ego.
Mhm.
I know we have that being taught through our traditional psychology, but what I've been taught and what I've experienced is that there is not one ego, there is thousands of egos, thousands of them. And parts work is starting, there is something that is being taught called parts work, which is similar in its concept that there's not just one thing that we're battling, quote unquote, but actually that there are control mechanisms that are thousands of them. And nope, there's no issue with them except that we've given them power, right? They were created by us through our psyche to handle the situations we couldn't because we are asleep mostly. As a species, we're still really, really, really young. And so there are certain things we just, when fear comes in, we can't handle it. The psyche goes, something needs to be in control. Let me create an ego to handle the situation.
Right.
And technically, they were supposed to be flushed out, but they became permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And in the way we've developed, we now have a residual self-image of just a combination of all kinds of different egos that you believe yourself to be. And these egos now believe themselves to be you. And so they think they're in control. And so, if you have a patterned reaction of irritation, judgment, anger, resentment, any of those, it's part of your residual self-image, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, that's one of the key understandings and really, really empowering because the number one thing is they're not who you are. They're at the essence not who you are. They're part of the mechanism to help us survive until we wake up, right? And so the way you identify egos is through emotional reactions. Any emotional reaction is an ego. And I distinguish between feelings, which are electrical, and emotions, which are chemical. In the
Right.
body is how they go. So feelings, love, joy, gratitude, innocence, all of those. That's who we are. We are feeling at our essence. We're not emotions. And so coming back to the story, with this understanding, it's like, okay, what grief, right, is an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a sacred cow emotion in humanity. Well, grief is human condition. Grief is natural. Well, in my understanding, it's not at the essence of who we are, right?
Right.
And so I got to sit with when Rennie left, I got to sit with that question. What if even grief is something that I need to observe, I need to be aware of, but then shift back into the feeling state of who I am? Can I do that? Can I not go down the rabbit hole of what pretty much everybody expects I mean, the way people talk to you when somebody dies for somebody, it's like, "Oh, you must be in such grief and so sorry for your loss." And there is like a shared emotional soup that we all wanna swim in. Nothing wrong with it, but, again, I wanted to see could I walk my talk and not allow the there's there's almost an addictive quality to having people be around you, tending to you, wanting you to feel better, knowing that you're in grief. But, that it's like, what if I say I'm actually not in grief? Or when the moment of grief comes, I shift very quickly into gratitude, into honoring Rennie's choice of his journey of evolution, right? Of
Mm.
respecting him, of being in my joy at all times, right? And so it was just a fascinating journey, and all three of these events have, in different ways, required me to ask that question. And frankly, to be really honest, having my mother living with me has been the biggest challenge. The emotional triggers from the childhood and all the experiences we've had have been the most difficult.
Yeah.
And just to bring it back to leadership, and then I'll, stop for a moment, is can we manage our state of being such that when life events happen, big or small, that we bring us back to that calm, centered, open, curious, focused, fulfilled state of being so that we can stay our course and not get derailed for a year, a month, even a week.
Even
Can
an
we
hour.
even an hour? Yeah, can
Yeah.
we come back? And it's and what I mentioned is like the addiction to the emotion is strong, and that I have found has been the strongest deterrent or the strongest block to really choosing your state of being. It's the addiction to being irritated. I have a right to be irritated because you did this to me, right? You did it. It's the victim, the righteousness part of it that is so addicting. When in fact we have a choice to say, actually, no, that's not who I choose to be, and that's not the person I want to be in the world that we want to create. And I have to represent that now. And that's really the biggest call here is, what does it take for us to up level as leaders to represent that new world? And can we hold the state of being, the frequency of that? And then the choices and the action.
Yeah. And listening to you is I'm getting some hits as well, but it's so important because it's big work. It's not going to happen overnight.
Oh.
But once you actually start the work, it starts happening.
Yes.
And that's what's so important is it's never too late.
Oh, absolutely
not. And this addiction thing, it comes into my work a lot because, the addiction to suffering. And then, when we get into that emotional trigger grabs us, we actually, and I know by personal experience, of course, like that,
we all,
so you have that emotional trigger, like, oh, mom pisses me off or something. And the family is the strongest trigger. Like, I mean, that ancestral line and then the bigger family, even that, like the new family, like you're my family, because you're part of my tribe, right? They are the ones who actually are there mirroring back to you the thing you need to shift. Triggers. And I notice, because I'm stalking myself all the time like a mountain lion, watching myself, is when the word addiction even, is a coping. We want to cope with that emotional trigger. So we want to like get away from it. And so what can bring me away from that grief or pissed off feeling and feel better without actually, like you said, the feelings going into the feeling of like it instead.
Yeah.
So we run away instead of staying with it.
Yes. Yes.
And that's so important to like that's what I was gathering from what you were saying there is like, if you want to stand up and be this leader, like I do, and you do, and so many other visionary and conscious entrepreneurs do, we have to stop running away.
Yeah.
We have to come back. And you keep, this hand movement you're making is the physical gesture for it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is to me, if there is any first step in waking up, is the ability to not only be self-aware, but to self-observe. If you don't have that, you have pretty much very little chance of waking up, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I have seen. You need to be able to see yourself with neutrality, with objectivity, and an ability to separate yourself. And so to tie it back into what I was just saying, if egos are not who you are, then you have the ability to separate yourself from it. When we get into an emotional muck, we believe that's who we are. We're in it, and we have almost no ability to actually really see what's going on. And I find in the spiritual new age communities, people are actually okay at the notice part. Yep, I'm angry. Yep, I'm triggered. Yep, I'm this. And then there's a lot of processing that goes on, right?
Sometimes it doesn't end either.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to tie in quickly to your speed what you were talking about, it takes time. Yes. And there is now a real opportunity to like quickly get over these things. It takes commitment, it takes the ability to self-observe, but when you understand all of these dynamics, we can up level really, really quickly. In fact, technically you could up level in an instant. You
Yes.
could have that change, that this endless processing and the personal development 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, we've all done a lot of self-development. We're now at a time, and this is part of the urgency, I guess, in today's time. We don't have much more time to do a lot of this, like processing stuff. What if we had the tools to literally say, okay, I know when I'm triggered, that's an emotional reaction. That means that's an ego. Let's give it a name, irritable iris, right? Or Ronnie Righteous or whatever, it's something outside of me. And this is a tool that I give, that I do with my clients. I call that the 100% observer. And I use that term very, very deliberately. It can't be 99%, because even if you have 1% tentacle in that emotional muck and you feel yourself as part of that, you cannot fully see it, right? So I take people, I separate them into their authentic self, that totally neutral, totally unconditional, totally loving, but not invested part of you. Higher self, don't like to use that word because there is no hierarchy in the universe, right? There's just stages of evolution. But authentic self, pull that part out and then totally observe the emotional reaction. And I know you do a lot of embodiment and somatic work, like literally become Sherlock Holmes. And this is where the fun part is. You were saying we try to run away. This is the exact opposite. It's like you run toward. Like I oftentimes say, take a lawn chair, plunk yourself in front of the place where in the body is the trigger is, oftentimes the solar plexus, right? That contraction and acidity in the solar plexus, oftentimes in the throat or the heart, right? So we first identify where is the emotional reaction. I mean, if it's in your little toe, then put your lawn chair in front of your little toe. It's amazing where the the triggers and the mechanisms sit. And then you just, with total curiosity and focus, which means it's fascination. Curiosity with focus is fascination. And you are totally fascinated to see how this ego has been controlling you, right? And you just observe it from every angle. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What essence does it have? Is it a dark cloud? Is it a tarry pool? Is it a vapor cloud? What is it, right? Is it a locked room, right? And you just totally become Sherlock Holmes. And so you take it out of this like, oh, this is scary, I don't want to see this, to bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. And it's like, it's amazing. And I basically developed this tool through an experience that I had after watching a movie. I think it was like I Am Legend with Will Smith. These horrible humanoid creatures brought dread up in me, and I could not shake it for months. I could not shake this dread. And then one day I'm like, I have enough. You show yourself, right? And I laid in this bed and I brought up scene after scene after scene after scene. And like my dread kept going up and up. But because I somehow had popped myself into 100% observer, it didn't matter. I'm like, bring it on. And all of a sudden there was a peak and it dissipated more and more and more. And then there was the poof, and it has never come back since. And that taught me the absolute importance and the powerfulness of observer, 100% observer, right? And I've done it now with clients again and again, and it works. And so, yeah, the ability to
Awesome. I love it. I just was like, got the magnifying glass and my cap on the whole time you're talking. Like, you can make it fascinating. You can make
yes,
it's fun too, like the excitement of it's kind of like the quest, right? Like you're on the
Yeah,
hero's journey
right.
and you're sleuthing. You're sleuthing,
That's it.
you're investigating. And when you find it, it's like, oh, it's right there. Okay, got it.
Exactly, exactly, and
Yeah.
no longer be afraid of your emotional system when you understand the mechanisms. Again, egos are not who you are, they're what triggers an emotional reaction. Anytime you have any emotional reaction, you know there's an ego. Find it, give it a name, observe it so clearly that it cannot no longer have control over you. Egos function in the shadows of your consciousness.
Mhm.
When you see them and pull them up, they lose control. And this is a choice. This comes back to choice. So the second rule of waking up is make the choice. You have a choice in every moment. We talk about, we create our own reality. We create our own reality, right? Everybody's like, oh yeah, I create my own reality. And the moment they step outside and somebody bumps into them, hey, jerk, why are you doing that to me? Oh, did you just create your own reality? Then own it. Find your reaction in that moment and release it. They're just giving you a golden opportunity to see it. So mom has been my golden opportunity to see a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just that's what then the interaction is. And I know in your shamanic work you do a lot of that, like the interplay in this, like I think you call it mastering your universe, right?
Yeah.
Mastering your life. The first rule of that is you've got to take 100% responsibility for every shred of your experience. And people then go into, oh, why would I create this miserable thing and blah, blah, blah. It gets very complicated. It's complex because we're asleep. So there's mechanisms that we're not even aware of. And so therefore, let's wake up so that we have more and more mastery of our universe, which we already have. It's just unconscious.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like we're not learning this from growing up, right? Like unless
Right.
you're with parents who are like Kirsten, like, or unless those people were your parents and you were learning that, this is not taught anywhere. So
No.
we do need to work with people like you. Like you have to find the teachers who are teaching this information
Yeah.
to learn it. So can you tell us a bit about how we can learn more about this? Like people like me, visionaries, conscious entrepreneurs, soulpreneurs, people who are leaders and they have the call. Like the thing
Yes.
is and it can be confusing and it's okay if you're confused, but you know that you've been called.
Yeah.
And you said something about it earlier, like I can't remember what you said. Like if you know you're a bridge builder, and just knowing that can be confusing because you don't know how to put that first rung
Right.
on the bridge, right?
Right.
And but but just because you know it and you know you're called is enough to start the process.
Yes.
And how can people like me start the process with you?
Yeah. Well, for one, I have a master class coming up, a free master class, which will go specifically into how do we handle life's unexpected events or challenges, right? And so that's going to happen on the 17th, and we'll put a link to the registration. Are you going to be able to post that?
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so it's called Unwavering Leadership in a Changing World, right? And it's a masterclass for the builders of a more beautiful world. It's the new humanity, the people that are here. And I want to say something about this. We don't know how we're called to serve. We have this longing to serve. We have like this we're feeling like the homing beacon of this beautiful world, and we know we're here to somehow serve, right? And what I have found in my exploration of that question, the purpose question, and I know you know this, like so many people are stuck in purpose paralysis. It's like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do, right? And there is this sense of some external authority, even the word, I'm called to do something,
Mhm.
right? There's the
Mhm.
sense that there's some external authority who is telling you what to do, that is doing the grand orchestration. We got to get away from that too. Got to get away from this notion that there's something outside of you that is directing this. No, you have chosen to be part of these bridge builders, right? And you get to own that. And then what if your purpose is to actually hold the frequency of that new humanity, to represent that, and then you get to express your passion however is your joy. It takes the fretting out of it. It takes this, like, am I doing the right thing? You're doing what is bringing you joy. That right there is
Yeah.
helping change the world, right? It's
Yeah.
changing the frequency by you being in your joy. And so um yeah, this is about choosing who you are going to be in this time and making that your purpose, and then being in the world in passion, in joy, in life, right? And so this master class is going to look at how can you shift into that purposeful, leadershipful, focused, calm centered leader acting in the world, and not be completely derailed by life's event. How to come back to that stage of being, that frequency. And yeah, you might have a little detour. I mean, obviously there was a detour when Rennie died, right? There was a detour when I had the health challenge and needed a surgery, right? There's detours, but how fast can we come back, and can we stay connected to that and make a choice to consciously do a detour for a period of time and then come back, versus just letting the roller coaster of life, then take you, right? And you just off kilter for, weeks, months, years. That's what we don't have time for that anymore. And I don't mean to put any urgency on it. It all is imperfection. And, really there's nothing to fix ultimately. It's just, do you want to spend another year, another 5 years being distracted and unfocused, not having the foundational elements, not having the clarity, not having the ability to totally trust your inner guidance, your knowingness, your intuition? These are the aspects we need to cultivate if we want to build this better world sooner than later. And I would like that. I'm sure you all would like that too.
And I really don't want to spend another minute in it.
Right.
Like I want to get to work, because
Yeah.
the purpose, like I know that my purpose every time, well, this is part of my purpose, interviewing you right now, and this is bringing
Yes.
me so much joy and happiness. And I love learning, and I love experiencing, like, wow, what could we do? Like, what is
Yes.
possible, right?
Yes.
And what if?
Mm,
And you know, coming to your masterclass sounds like, wow, anything is possible when we come to the plate
yes.
and and
Yes.
and s- and sit with ourselves and be open to learning something from somebody who is sharing their purpose with you,
Yes.
especially when they're
Yeah.
in their authentic self. It's like a channel through you, right? Like it is a
Right.
frequency. It is definitely a frequency, and to be operating in frequency that is loving, joyful, kind, happy,
Mhm.
generous, prosperous, fun, all those fields of consciousness that are expanding.
Yes.
That sounds like a beautiful place to hang out on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
practice. It can happen in an instant.
Yes.
And oftentimes we have these spikes in experience that are so expanding, and then we run around saying we've been enlightened or we're awake, and it's like, yeah, you had a spike in experience, and maybe your baseline is higher now, but if we're
Yeah.
let's say 10% awake and we suddenly pop to 20% awake, that's 100% more awake. That feels enlightening, right? So
Yeah.
spiritual humility is a real
Yeah.
important one on this. I always like to say we're infinite beings in diapers, right? And to just let that be the case. We're such a young species, so young and so early on in our journey of waking up, of first waking up, aware, conscious, intelligent. I mean, there's stages of evolution, and we are so at the beginning. So let's have it be fun. Let's not declare ourselves to be done. There is no there, right? There is no there moment where now we're sitting on the cloud forever. It's like, stop that. It's the journey, the joy of the journey. And we hear that, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's we want to come into the present moment so profoundly, so acutely, be in touch with our senses, not just the sight, hearing, taste, touch, not the inner presence, the telepathic senses. I mean, that is what's going to supplant the need to get adrenaline into your body so you feel alive. You feel so much more alive when you have life pulsing through you, and it's coming into that present moment and choosing in every moment who you're going to be, and there's no dogma around it. No, this is who you should be, or this is how many mantras you're supposed to say, or all of the rules of that. No, you get to choose on a foundation and of a framework, and that's what the life principles are, the framework. And then you get to build and express in your own individuality and independence, and you get to express who you are within the understanding that we're all one, right? So it's both that duality.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you for hours, Kirsten, and we have had lots of talks for hours, and they're so wonderful. And I'm so grateful for the expansion that you have added to this interview, like into my life today
Hmm.
and where I'm going to go next. And so, if we want to find out more about you, we can follow you on Facebook, your
Yes,
name, Kirsten
yes,
Liegmann.
yes.
And we're going to drop a link for the masterclass into
Yep.
the chat, and any other links for you. We're
Well,
going to
you
drop.
can go on to illianleadershipacademy.com, and we'll also put that link in. And that's basically, if you just want to book a one-on-one call with me first, as a free exploration. I am getting ready to do a year-long master class, mastery in leadership mastery, and I'm going to have a very a small curated group of leaders that I'm going to take through, I call it Jedi training, to do this up level quickly, to get out of the off the roller coaster that derails you, to set the foundational elements. I have an MBA in sustainable management, so I can give you the foundational elements of time management and project management and communication, presence, speaking. All of that will, and then the clarity and vision of it. I want a small curated group that I can take through to help up level. And so this first master class will be sort of that beginning, but if you're interested in that, you can just book a one-on-one call with me as well.
Right. So we'll put that link in the chat, and because we'll be broadcasting this through Receptive Radio, your tuning station,
Yay.
and we're hosting that on the Facebook group Receptive Radio, and also on YouTube. So it'll be in 2 places. And then this masterclass, it's on the 17th.
On the 17th,
On the
11
yeah.
a.m. Mountain Time. Yep.
Okay. Good, good. And the name of it again is How Do We Manage
Unwavering,
Challenge?
the unwavering leadership in a changing world.
Right. So
Yeah.
Unwavering Leadership in a Changing World Masterclass,
Mhm.
July 17th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. I want to be there. And so we're inviting all of you, Receptive Radio community, to show up there too. I'm sure it'll be a very powerful event, and just sitting in your presence is powerful.
Mm.
So thank you so much, Kirsten. I'm so grateful that you came on for this interview. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and this teaching with this community.
It's so my pleasure. It's such a wonderful space. I can feel, your frequency, and, I can feel even the people that are creating the field that we have just created. And it's so potent. And I think we can all feel that there's such a potency here. And it's like, let's do this. We can do this. Right. And so thank you for the space you hold and the service you're doing, in your own way, your leadership. And it's just, this is what it'll take, for us to be on this journey together and to have these amplifying experiences.
Yeah. And working together.
Yeah.
Working together in community.
Exactly.
And so thank you so much, Kirsten, one more time. And thank you, Receptive Radio community. I'm so grateful for your presence today, for listening or watching the replay. And Receptive Radio is your tuning station podcast. It's for visionary, conscious entrepreneurs, leaders of the new world, and the bridge builders too. And
Yep.
so you can put your comments in the chat below on the platform you're watching on, and like this post and subscribe to this channel as well. And we're so grateful to have you. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Receptive
Bye,
Radio.
everybody.